It's Tuesday. That means we got Michael Folks co-hosting with Your Saltwater Guide, Capt. Dave Hansen, and we're bringing in a guy who's been very, very influential in the sport fishing industry in Southern California, kind of paving the way up at the Channel Islands, making sure that everybody up there's on the same path that we're on. Michael and I trying to keep fishing open. David Bacon, you've been up there in that Channel Islands thing for 40 plus years. I know it on your bio, it says 30, but I think you wrote that probably 50 years ago. So
yeah, not all bios are current, are they?
No.
Yeah, no, I've been doing this for, somewhere between 200 and 300 years now.
You must be getting your Social Security check.
Listen, I'm just hitting my stride here.
Right on.
And I'm so happy to have you here. We had your daughter with us last Wednesday, which was absolutely phenomenal having Tiffany on here. And now she's taken the ball and she's over there on our website and she's helping all the members learn how to wrap rods. And she's going to start doing that school with our members and everything. And I asked her in the middle of it, I said, do you think we could get your dad on my show? And she said, he would love to be on there. I was like, I had no idea. I'm pretty happy to have you here today, sir. So thank you so much for joining us.
You know, the way I see it is, boy, here I am hanging out with other, I'm going to call us this, other elder members of our industry. And, I feel like, hey, I'm with my people. I'm happy. I'm comfortable sitting right here with you folks.
Yeah. Hey, before we got on the air, Dave, we were talking about, your legacy and what the sport's meant to you over the years. And you said something about Tiffany that just touched my heart. Can you kind of reiterate that about what it means to sort of have passed the baton down?
Yeah. I was telling you that I'm really happy and proud and comfortable with all of what I've done in the industry. But of all of it, the crowning achievement there, or what feels good, is having brought up the next generation of my family, Tiffany, make that Captain Tiffany, up through the ranks, working with her as she was my crew member, my deckhand, and then she got her papers, and she'd run the boat without me when I had something else to do. But we had a bait and tackle store for years. She managed that. It became just one of the most incredible rod wrappers in the entire world. And I say that because she's been to international competitions and won. And so watching what she is doing with that and helping her with it, and with the vaguerods.net website now and all the online classes and selling people products for very, very, attractive low prices, it's just all feels so good. And I'm so proud of her. And, yeah,
you got to be
good.
You got to be feeling awfully, awfully good.
Yeah. And I'm really happy that she's getting involved with the Your Saltwater Guide work, the forums and whatnot. And I see that she's enjoying that. She's going to bring who she is and what she knows and does to that. And I'm confident that she's going to be a help to you.
Oh, she's phenomenal.
Big time, David. I mean, already there was a guy, Dave Burris, he's kind of there doing it. Dave, he knows you real well. And he said he talked to Tiff back when she first started wrapping rods, but Dave got crushed by a car and he's having a really hard time just breathing anymore, let alone wrapping rods. And he was so excited. He's all, you're going to bring, I said, I'm going to ask her if she'll come. And then bam, now I think they talk every single day, which is good for him, good for her, and great for our community.
Yeah. I know that they have been. And I'll tell you something that's coming down the line with her. In fact, I think she's already started some of it. But she kind of ran an organization for wrestlers in school, because her younger son is he's in college on a wrestling scholarship now. But one of the things she learned to do during that time was make videos that just pop. I mean, she makes these videos, she puts music to them, she changes up speed and everything else, and they're just like fun to watch. The whole wrestling community just jumped online every time she put one out, which is quite regularly. And I know that she's working on some to put on the forums there now, and you're going to love that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be so fun having her perspective and doing what she does, because you and her have been helping the industry up there in the Channel Islands area for a very, very long time, which, to be perfectly honest, that Channel Islands area is kind of like a hidden thing. Michael and I, we don't know much about it. People don't talk about it. You and Tiff were probably the only people that were really out there talking about it. No one knows how beautiful it is to fish at Santa Cruz or Santa Rosa or San Miguel. Those places for Michael Folks and I, those are like magical places. We always went south. We went to Cabo. We went to Puerto Vallarta. We didn't go up there. And then to have you guys teaching people about what's going on and having your tackle shop. I mean, let's go back for a minute. We kind of jumped in here and we are all over the place. Let's go back to, how did you get into this fishing thing?
I was a little kid, but if I can share a little story with you.
Yeah.
That's why you're here.
When I was like 7, 8 years old, I lived by riverbed, and way up that riverbed was a lake that was not private. It was military, actually. Nobody could fish it. And then they would let water down into the riverbed, and they would use dozers and create these banks and whatnot to slow the water down so it would sink in for the water table. And some really fine fish would come down that river, and they would get caught in this everything that they had made in that riverbed. And there would be these pools, maybe the size of an average person's backyard, right? And maybe about 2.5 feet deep, something like that. And then they would slowly sink in. Well, those things had some amazing bass and trout in them that came down with the water from the lake. And so as a little kid, the water was too murky because it was, that water that you come down and it was all sand and mud there. And so you couldn't really use a rod and a reel. So what we did is we waded out into that, chased the fish around, jumped in and grabbed them, and we'd come up with an armful of, surprisingly big bass and trout, and just covered head to toe in mud and sand. The only thing bigger than that fish was my grin. I mean, as a 7 or 8 year old kid, there is no way you can have more fun than that.
Yeah.
I'm closing my eyes thinking about that. I can totally see me doing that, jumping in there. I want to get one of those fish for damn sure. That is a phenomenal story. So that was the hook. That's what got you into this thing?
It worked. Here I am.
There you are.
Just a few years later.
20 years later.
20 years later, right.
Yeah. But up there at the Channel Island, it's kind of a magical place, right? You had that wave walker boat. You guys fish some phenomenal stuff. That calico bass fishing up there is like insane, right?
I was waiting to mention that.
That's our favorite fish. Michael and I would rather fish those than anything.
Yeah, some of those places way down south that you mentioned, I fished all of those, fished all the way up, Washington State and everywhere in between. But the Santa Barbara Channel and the Channel Islands, one of the reasons why I moved here many decades ago is because this area it's where everything comes together as far as currents and everything else goes. And it's such a complex geography and topography that you can literally spend a lifetime trying to learn how to fish this one channel and the islands. And it's the most complex place I've ever seen. And I needed that. I needed that for my mind to chew on. And so I just poured myself into the channel, and I fished everything out here. Love playing tug of war with the white sea bass that we've got up here and the halibut and all kinds of things. But my absolute favorite is going out to Santa Cruz or Santa Rosa Island, taking the boat just right up within a boat length of the boiler rocks with the big swells crashing over them and water spraying up and the cliff faces there so beautiful, it's stunning. And these big, angry junkyard bass critters just come out there and pounce on the swim bait and just surprise you at what they're capable of.
Yeah,
and you have that much fun and that gorgeous of a place. It's like, I'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, the Channel Islands is a magical place. I've been up there a few times. I can't comprehend because I haven't spent any time there. Like you said, you could spend your whole life there and you're never gonna figure it out. Something that's missing up there, all these kids, these young kids today, they're sea bass, yellowtail halibut, period. They're missing out on that phenomenal calico bass fishery. I just can't, you don't see any of them. You don't see any of them posting on social media. You don't see any of them showing all that beautiful calico that's there. You're the only guy that I didn't even know, to be perfectly honest, until I started seeing your stuff in Western Outdoor News and Pacifico Sport Fishing Magazine. I was like, we didn't even know there were calico bass up there. I thought the water was too cold. And that place is insane. And you guys have such a phenomenal fishery with no pressure at all, right, Dave?
You know, it's far less pressure than a lot of other places. And the fact that I am not secretive, and I like to write about it, and I like to tell people where to go and what to use and that sort of stuff. You know, there were some people not real happy about that part, but you know, it's okay. I'll deal with that. And then, you know, Tiffany and I decided there's our local tackle store here. The gentleman was getting a mite elderly, which means even more elderly than me, and he needed to sell it. So we bought that tackle store. And so then we really got to tell people where to go and what to use and all of that. And that was part of the joy too, you know, just helping people catch fish and making sure that we have access to those well-managed fish. Those are kind of the two things that have driven me all along. Helping people catch fish and keeping us in access to those well-managed fish.
Yep.
And gang, I want to let everybody know it's Promar Ahi USA, or Promar Ahi Tuesday. We're talking Promar products on Tuesday. We're going to show you a couple of Promar products. A lot of you took advantage of the Memorial Day sale yesterday with the QR code and everything we threw up there. So thank you all very much for that. Promar wanted me to thank you guys for jumping in there and getting all those products yesterday. We're going to show you a little ghost shrimp pump here in a little bit. And Dave and Michael and I will definitely talk about how they want to close. They want to close the Channel Islands. And it's such a shame and it's so sad. But we have the same problem going on. Where Michael lives, David, he lives in Laguna Beach, California. That's one of the most beautiful places on the planet Earth. There's nothing like it anywhere. And we're not allowed to fish there anymore. And they want to do the same thing to your Channel Islands. They want them bad, right?
They do. And in my youth, I used to go to Laguna Beach all the time. And I don't think I think it was actually 289 steps, 1,000 steps.
I think it's more than 289.
Is it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I was younger then. I'm sure it seemed like 1,000 steps was too small a number now. But at any rate, yeah, I used to fish that whole area a lot from shore.
Yep.
And God, what a magnificent fishery!
Phenomenal fishery. I see the same thing.
You know, and our fisheries are so well managed.
Correct.
And with the golden goal of sustainability.
Yep. That,
you know, closing fishing is not about fisheries management at all.
Politics.
Yeah.
It's politics. It's got nothing to do with fisheries management or science.
Well, I'm glad that you talked about Laguna because that's one of my saddest moments was when we lost all of Laguna because coming out of our landing at Dana Point, why all the other sport boats would make that left-hand turn coming out of the harbor, I would always turn right because that Laguna Beach is like what you were talking about at San Miguel or Santa Rosa, backing into the boiler rocks, having 15 or 20 regulars standing on the back of the seahorse, all chucking big mackerel in there on the rocks, catching giant calico bass. Just absolutely beautiful place on the planet Earth. my boys are 35 and 32, and they both got to fish it right before they closed it. My beautiful wife, Kelly girl, got to fish it right before they closed it. A lot of the people watching our show right now are never going to get to fish it, and it's so flippin' sad. And Michael and I are working very diligently, like you are up there, trying to keep fishing open down here because they want there's only a tiny little sliver of Laguna left open, and they want it so bad, Dave Bacon. They want it. That's all they can think about.
That's all they can think about, except when they're thinking about closing parts of the Channel Islands and other places along the coast too. Yeah, they do a lot of that thinking.
Yeah.
That Anacapa Island, you guys lost a massive percentage of that island all just like that for no reason at all, right?
That's the reason. No reason at all.
It's absolutely incredible. And your rockfish fishing up there is second to none. I know you and Tiff have a million spots where you can fish rockfish in 100, 150 feet of water. Isn't it the most craziest thing you've ever seen what they're doing with these depth restrictions? Today it's 100, you can fish 100 feet. Tomorrow you can fish 360. But if you fish 360 after 4 o'clock in the afternoon and you have an orange fish on the boat, you're going to a federal penitentiary. And then if after 4 o'clock you could have that orange fish, but you can only have one of them, and it just drives you nuts, right?
Oh, it does. And speaking of Tiffany, I see she just put up a hello, everyone.
Yep, there she is.
Yeah, good for her. And yes, we have a lot of spots where we can fish 150 feet less. You know, you mentioned San Miguel Island before, and there's places in Santa Rosa that are the same. I would take groups of bass fishermen out there with bass poles and swim baits, and we would be catching lingcod, lingosaurs, good lingcod, and big reds in 30 to 50 feet of water out there on bass rigs. Yeah. And let me tell you, that is fun.
That's fun.
Oh, yeah. You're thinking you're going to get a calico and then you hook onto one of those big dragons? Hell yeah. And to think that they don't want us to do that anymore, Dave Bacon, and to think how important it is to get guys like you to come on the show. And then we got these guys from the Midwest, Missouri and stuff. They're on here today, and the Mississippi River and the Capt fishermen guys. We're all under attack as far as fishing goes. The last thing they want to do, gang, is see any of us with a smile on our face. If they see Dave Bacon smiling, they're going to figure out what in the hell's making him smile and how can we get that smile off his face.
How can we take that away from him? Yep.
Right? That's what it seems like to me, Dave. And you work very closely with my sister, Donna. Tell me me, I can't go to those. The police will come. It'll be gnarly. But what do you think? What is the driving force to get us to stop fishing?
I believe it's simply a philosophical difference. Some people believe we shouldn't be out there pestering fish. And if that's what they believe, and when I sit in meetings, and frequently in the meetings I sit in, I'm on one side of the table and everybody else in the room is on the opposite side of the table. That's normal for me. And I'm comfortable with it.
They're getting paid to be there.
And they're getting paid to be there, and I'm losing money that day to be there. Yep. Yeah, the playing field is not level.
Not right.
But I'm comfortable in that situation. I'll take them all on. Bring it, And really, when we take a break, I can go out and get a burger with all those folks because I accept that they are fighting for what they personally believe. And anybody that does that as a person is A-okay in my book. But while we're sitting there discussing the issues, I'm going to be pulling out information, facts, and figures and realities and just proving the point that what you're trying to do is not about managing fisheries. Don't say it is. It's just about trying to bring about your goal of nobody fishes. Let's just be honest about that. And, fishing is such an integral part of who we are, what we do culturally and familially, it's how we raise our families. It's how we have time with our kids. And I even work with a lot of subsistence anglers, people who are realistically wherever they're at, frequently on a pier, so that their hungry kids at home can actually have some nutrition tonight, some protein. And those folks are near and dear to my heart. And one of the things I'm trying to do is get the department, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, but every state has their own department like that, to recognize that there are 3 types of fishing folk, not 2. There's commercial, there's recreational, but there's also subsistence. And I believe that they should have their own set of rules, because those folks need a little help. And one of the things I do when I can put together some funding, and I'm always looking for that, is I and Captain Tiffany, we work on this together. We put on subsistence angler fishing events, SAFE, safe. And what we do is we work with the manufacturers, like Okuma has been really helpful for us. And we will get a whole bunch of gear. We will reach out into the disadvantaged community, get them all down to a pier, and we give them a rod and a reel with line on it, sabiki tied on, a weight on the end, ready to walk out on that pier. And then I'll put on a talk for all of them to tell them how they can catch more fish on that pier for their hungry family by fishing the tides and just all the factors involved. And I'll just put on a talk like that for them. And, you know, really that brings out that smile you were talking about, a little hidden by my mustache, but it's there. and that makes me smile more than anything else that I do, because it brings about the old parable: give a person a fish and they eat for a day, but teach them to fish and they eat for a lifetime. That's what we're doing.
Yep. And we've been saying all along in this new history series that you cannot hurt a fishery with a rod, a reel, and a piece of string. Can't do it. I don't care how good of an angler you are. I don't care how skilled you are. You cannot hurt a fishery with a rod, reel, and a piece of string. The difference between a commercial activity, a commercial operation, you talked about sustainability, and sport fishing, they're not even in the same ballpark. They're not even in the same sentence. And yet these guys group us all together as one unit. And, you know, our commercial regulations here for our commercial fisheries is the most stringent in the world. And I tip my hat to our commercial fishermen, because they've had to deal with stuff that no one else in the world's had to deal with in terms of regulations. And they've managed to maintain a fishery and maintain the species. So it's just even the waste of energy to talk about taking a rod and reel out of a grandfather's hands and not be able to take his grandkid fishing. It's insane. It's insanity.
That is sad. And, you know, and I'm also really proud of our real fisheries managers. I mean, like the PFMC, Pacific Coast Fisheries Management Council.
Outstanding.
You know, they and Mark Gorelnick running it. I mean, they all do a magnificent job of working with all of that and kind of trying as best they can to ignore the nonsense and remember that they're trying to be fisheries managers here. And, you know, the people, fishing folk out there need to understand that. Dave, if I can share another memory of your family.
We want you. That's why you're here.
Once upon a time, after I had written an article, this is a long time ago, I got a call and the feller said, "Hey, this is Don Hansen, president of the PFMC." And my first thought was, could I be in trouble with the PFMC? And he said, "Hey, I just wanted to commend you for the article you just wrote, because it actually explains how the whole fisheries management process between the feds and the states work. And that's what we've been trying to teach people for so long, and just wanted to say thank you."
That's cool.
Wow.
You know, that felt good.
Yep.
Yeah, when you don't get a phone call from my dad, it's usually not a positive phone call when he would call. Everybody.
Well, you know, another one, and you're right, he doesn't always call, but here's another example of that. Is once upon a time, I wrote an article and about, I think I picked 10 of the really important women in the sport fishing industry. And Donna was one of them. And your dad didn't call me for that, but I heard many times that he kept that copy of that magazine on his desk for a good long time.
Yeah, he's very proud of my sister. We all are. You and I and Michael, we were talking about her earlier. Gang, those of you that don't know what we're talking about, my family has been in this industry since 1947. My father was a massive politician, not because he loved politics, but because he knew, and I didn't understand it at the time, Dave. I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Dad? And he's like, if I don't do something, son, they're going to take this all away from us. And I'm all, Dad, my dad at the time owned 9 sport boats. He owned the landing in Dana Point. He'd already built it up from the San Clemente days, San Clemente Sport Fishing. He didn't have to do it, and I didn't understand it. It didn't make any sense as a dumb, snot-nosed kid. What is he doing? He was in the political world for 40 plus years, making sure that we could go fishing. And like Dave Bacon just said, or if Michael Folks had a show, or if Pete Gray had a show on Let's Talk Hookup, the last thing you guys wanted to do was look at your phone and go, oh, shh, Don's calling me. Don's calling me. What the heck? Because you knew that he had his finger on the pulse of every single thing that was going on, and how he did that. Now we know how Donna's doing it, Dave. Like you said, there's got to be 50 hours in a day for Donna, but she was brought up by the old man, and that's how they approach this fishing thing. If we talk to Donna today, and those of you guys, you cat fishermen back there, you're going to be blown away that my family knows all about how many catfish you're allowed to have and where you're allowed to have them at and how you're allowed to prepare them and what's the size limit and what's the possession. You'll just go, how in the hell does this guy's family? Well, fishing is an integral part, just like Dave Bacon talking about Tiffany. My dad instilled it into us that we got to pay attention, because you look up. One thing, Michael, that my dad said, though, he told me when we were doing the MLP thing 22 years ago, he said, listen, son, they will never get Laguna. And I was like, okay. And then I would call him up and I'd go, Dad, they got Laguna. Shh. He would tell me some words that we're not supposed to say on the show, but he couldn't believe that they got Laguna. And the whole Laguna thing, Dave Bacon, you were there, it had nothing to do with what they wanted, gang. It had to do with the residents of Laguna Beach, California. The residents of, I'm just going to try to help everybody understand. The residents of the city of Laguna Beach, California said this in the meeting when they were putting the map together. They said, if you leave the area in front of Dave Bacon's house in Thousand Steps Laguna open to fishing, and you close the area in front of Main Beach, in front of Michael Folks's house, closed. This is how they did it. You're going to be blown away, gang. I was there. They said Michael Folks's property value is going to go up. Dave Bacon's property value is going to go down. And how they sold this thing. And the Fish and Wildlife said, well, we don't have the people to enforce it. So you know what the city of Laguna does? They put a fund together where they enforce it themselves. It's the saddest freaking thing you've ever seen, gang. They took all of Laguna one day, and they even got the sewer pipe. And Elisa, which goes against everything that they stand for, David Bacon. You closed an area that dumped sewage into the ocean. What? My dad was like, what are you guys doing? You can't do that. It's just mayhem, right? When you're at those meetings, doesn't it just, I know you go to lunch with the people, but don't you just go, what the hell? Are we living in a cuckoo world?
Pretty much. But the important thing is I keep going to the meetings. Yep. Don't give up. And I earn their respect. They know what I'm going to come at them with. They've got no defense, but they know I'm just going to keep coming, and I'm going to make them anything that they can get from me. I'm going to make them earn it. It's not going to be easy. And I'm one person, but there are thankfully a lot of really good people doing what I do, and like my involvement in CCA. And Dave, you mentioned catfishers out in the Midwest and whatnot. And all over the country, we've got CCA now. And we've got a California chapter. We've got a chapter in most states. And, you know, the beauty is in the California chapter, we'll work on Sacramento. But collectively, the national organization will work on the Hill, Washington, D.C.
Yep.
So it's just, and so us and people from all over the country are able to work together on it. And we get a lot more done together than we do as individuals going into meetings.
What can an individual do, David, to help you and help CCA?
Well, the first and foremost thing is become a member. Okay. But beyond that, like in here in California, we have chapters in different counties up and down the coast. And that chapter stuff is where a lot happens. And that's super important. And so people can just go on the CCA California website and see where their local chapter is and contact them. Just go get involved. Go to a local board meeting, you know, for the local chapter, get involved in, you know, things they do, some of the fun things, some of them are fundraising and all of that, and just show up. Dang it, show up. When you show up, things happen, and they're usually good things.
We all live downstream.
Yeah, hold on 1 second on that thought. I want to show everybody this video Captain Al Clowers and I made about the ghost shrimp pump, and then we'll go right back into this. I want to warn every single one of you that's watching this, and Dave Bacon and Michael, turn your volume down right now. Everybody else that's listening, turn your volume down, because it was blowing hard when we made this video. I'm going to warn you one last time. Turn your volume down. Here we go.
Hey, what's up, guys? Captain Clowers here with Promar Ahi USA. They came out with a brand new ghost shrimp pump, state of the art, best one on the market. Stainless steel with beautiful features like these really sturdy handles. The exit hole is on both sides, so you don't get any air bubbles when you pull on your stroke up. And the end of it is really sharp, so it goes in the sand or the mud really easy. All the components are really accessible, where you can change the grommet and stuff like that. I've used a lot of pumps over the years, stainless steel ones as well, and this one is top notch. So I'm out here to show you how easy they work, and let's go over here and check it out. So all these little holes right here are ghost shrimp houses. So you go over the little hole and pull, and it's very easy. There's a bunch of small ones right here where we're at, but there's one right there, honey. See that? So here's a ghost shrimp right here. These are the perfect bonefish size right here. But just a couple pulls on the ghost shrimp pump, and we got some ghost shrimp. So if you guys are looking for a really cool stainless steel ghost shrimp pump, go to PromarAhiUSA.com and get yours today. See ya.
And right there on the bottom of the screen, gang, right over my face is the QR code. You save 15% on that ghost shrimp pump. And when you're over there on the website at Promar, you'll be blown away at all the products that you're using on a daily basis. Even you guys in the Midwest fishing for catfish. Promar makes everything. They make the crawdad traps. They make, oh my God, they make all the gloves we wear. They make gaffs and nets and bait scoops. That ghost shrimp pump, all of our lobster gear we use out here on the West Coast, everything. When you go to the Promar website, you'll go, what the heck? Yeah. I didn't know they made that. They make the sabikis like Dave was talking about a little bit ago. That sabiki rod is a great gateway to fishing. Like Dave was saying, you can go take that down on the pier, drop that in the water, and I don't know, maybe Dave could talk more about it. I don't think you need to tip it with any bait. I think those sabikis are going to catch all that fish swimming around the pier, and then you can take it home and eat it. It's a really cool company. Check out the QR code right there on the screen. Go to PromarAhi.com. Check out all the products. And if you're not seeing the QR code, if you're driving around in your car like Tiffany is, just put in the code YSWG as you're checking out. You'll save your 15% on all the products over there at PromarAhi.com. All right.
You know, I got to add about Promar. I've used their stuff for so long, you know, and then you know that Tiffany and I had a tackle shop for years too, and so I got to work with them that way. It is a quality company with great people involved, as well as having great gear that I think is reasonably priced.
Yep.
I like Promar.
Yeah, me too. Ben's awesome.
Ben and his mom and dad have built a heck of a company that pretty much takes care of pretty much all of our needs. They got everything we could possibly want. It's really good up there for the rock cod with the diamond jigs and the live deception flash and the rock cod squirts and so much stuff, gang. When you're over there, you'll just be blown away. So thanks for throwing that out there, gang. And the QR code's going to come down off the screen, but you can go to promarahi.com and put in the code YSWG and save your 15%. So Dave Bacon, we did something that no one had done before. When this sand bass thing started, my sister called me up and she said, hey, you got this platform. You got so many people that are following you and listening to what you have to say. She's all, I know you can't go to the meetings because you don't have a filter, but can you talk about it on your show? And I was like, absolutely. And she said, if we lose this sand bass, that's going to be it for Dad's business that he built, that he worked so hard. And really, Dave Bacon, all the sport boats in Southern California were built on the back of the barred sand bass. So I would love to hear what you thought when 150 of our members showed up on that Zoom call. What did you think of that?
I think that's exactly what we need to do. And you know, the organization to do something like that. There was a comment entered in just on the right side there, on my screen anyway. A little while ago said, "Newbie here. What is CCA California?" And
Yeah.
it's involved in helping with fisheries. I'm in, and it is. You can Google CCA California or Coastal Conservation Association. Google that. And no matter what state you're in, you'll be able to get to your state chapter and then to your local chapter from there. And that's how we organize the type of things that Dave was just talking about, to be able to get a whole bunch of people working together to bring about results. And so the importance of getting involved in CCA just cannot be understated. And as it relates to sand bass,
somebody posted up, let your voice be heard.
Let your voice be heard, right? Sand bass are such a here again and gone again fish. And the fact that they are not here does not mean they do not exist. And when they come back, we're catching fish that are old and big enough that, well, they didn't just get born yesterday, you know? And so those fish were here and didn't get caught last time they were in our area. And then they go and they move up and down the coast. We know that. And so when someone says, pick an area, oh, the Ventura Flats should be loaded with sand bass, and it's not. And I say, that's because they're not here right now. When they're here, it's loaded with them.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a fishery that we need to monitor and manage. And if changes are needed, we should make changes. But we should make changes based on solid science. None of this, don't spend any money on it and then claim, well, so we have to use best available science.
Yep.
Because the best available science isn't the truth.
Yep.
What is the truth is real hard work, stock assessments, and going from there. And in this case, the stock assessments have to be done on both sides of the border.
Yeah, they're not
because there are a lot of times when the sand bass aren't here because they're down south. And they're not going to leave down south until the conditions and food source down there suggest to them, oh, it's time to go look in one of our other haunts. And then they come up here. And then when the same thing happens here, conditions aren't comfortable or not enough food at the moment, then they go back down south or someplace else. But before you harm a fishery like that by setting unrealistic limitations. There needs to be good effort. There needs to be honest stock assessment work done. And we're not getting that. All we're getting is regulation changes based on not enough information.
And you can't get those assessments by the dock totals. That's not a true assessment.
It's hard work and it's expensive work. And so, now we start looking at finances like, okay, where does all of our fishing license money and extra stamps money and tackle excise money and all those other revenue streams, add all that up and then look at what's being spent on the things that matter to anglers, and you kind of left with the question of where's all that money going?
Oh,
here we are in California, and I think I know the answer to that.
Just got a nice new house, nice new $9 million house.
And so, there needs to be some holding of the feet to the fire.
Yes, sir.
And some forensic accounting to find out, this money that's supposed to be spent on fisheries management. Why isn't it? Where is it really going? And how can we redirect it back to where it belongs?
Those are really good points, Captain Dave.
And
really good.
I'm going to throw this out there because we have some people in the Midwest watching right now that kind of don't probably understand what we're up against here. There's only 4 states in the United States of America that made it illegal to ask for voter ID. And we live in the one right here in California. It's illegal if you get caught asking for voter ID. So I guarantee you, if there was voter ID, these problems would go away in about 10 seconds. But we're not allowed to. We have one of the most corrupt governments in the history of the United States of America in the state of California, gang. And what it's happening, I could care less. But when it affects my fishing, when it says I can't take my granddaughter out to catch a sand bass, makes me stand up and go, what the holy heck? When I went to those meetings online, Dave Bacon, I was listening to them tell us, and you brought up something cool about the Ventura Flats. They were all standing there. We know what side of the fence those people are on. We know it's crystal clear. We can see it, bigger than day. But they were telling us that the sand bass isn't a migratory fish. They said it 100 times that they said it once. And I looked at every one of those people, and they were whiter. Every one of them were whiter than this napkin. They were white, and their hands were I guarantee you their hands don't feel like Michael Folks's or David Bacon's. Their hands are super soft. They don't know where these fish come from. They don't know where they live. But these are the people that are making the decisions out here on the West Coast, gang. So that's why CCA is super important. And we got to see that firsthand with the sand bass closures. When we all showed up, they couldn't do their baloney. They were like, 150 people in the skew, huh? They were ready to close it. They were ready to close it down, and we scared the hell out of them. And I take zero credit for it. It was all of you that showed up.
Yeah, but you pushed it hard, Dave.
Dave Bacon, I'll tell you what, though, when it was over, you can ask my wife, Kelly, I literally wept in my bedroom. I sat on the edge of my bed and I wept because I didn't know if any of my followers would show up at that meeting. I didn't know. We talked about it, Michael, every single day on this podcast, Dave Bacon. We talked about it every single day. And lo and behold, they showed up. And we found out that there would have probably been 1,500 people, but they only paid for 50 on the Zoom call. That's all they paid for. Those people, where'd that money go? They couldn't pay for the 150 of us or 2,000 of us to show up.
And at the end of that, when you were sitting in your room weeping, I'm picturing your dad there in spirit with his arm around your shoulder.
Yep.
And all of us families that have been fishing for multi-generations, it's all the same thing. we're all counting on the next generation to keep it open, to keep access there for us.
We've been saying all along, take a kid fishing. If you can't do anything else, take a kid fishing, because if you don't teach somebody to love and respect something, they're not going to work to protect it. And without the passion that we have in our generation passed on to the next generation, we could lose the sport. I mean, there's that left wing extreme environmentalist. They want to abolish the sport, period. That's their goal. They've said it. They've said it straight up. Our goal is to abolish sport fishing. It's insane.
Yeah, that's what I deal with in the meetings all the time. And it's a philosophical difference.
Yep.
But, you know, I'm always going to fight for what I believe. And that is sustainability and access to it.
Yep.
That's what we need.
Yep,
and you know, we also need to we need to help. We need to help nature sometimes. For example, last week I was up in NorCal. I was on a statewide working group representing recreational anglers that's all about kelp restoration and management.
Okay.
And there's a lot of heavy work being done about that right now, and I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to be involved, and I was glad to spend 2 days in those meetings up in Santa Rosa, California, last week, and we did a lot of good work. And you know, there's a lot of problems for kelp. You know, a lot of the little sea stars and different things have kind of temporarily gone away, and that allows urchins to really population up, and that's hard on the kelp. And I could go on for hours, and I promise I won't. But kelp has some issues to deal with right now, and so a lot of work is being done on figuring out, okay, can we take a plant here? What can we do first about the urchin problem? And can we take a stalk of kelp and can we translocate it someplace else, or are we messing with genes? And will the kelp grazers in the new place actually accept it and need it? Okay, so there's a lot to consider there. And we talked about kelp genetics, you know, and I raised the question, okay, when we make this plan, we need to think about kelp genetics, because there's a lot of scientists working on things. Are we just looking at what kelp strains that we can translocate to an area where it's needed? Or are we talking about editing the DNA of kelp? Or are we talking about getting in there, you know, surgically and magically and creating something I termed Franken-kelp? What are we really doing here? And we need to consider all of that when we make a plan about it. So the underlying message here is I'm always happy to get involved in things like this that really help manage, restore when necessary, and maintain our resources that are just part of the ecosystem out there that all the critters rely on.
And when you shut down the urchin divers, that had a tragic effect on the whole thing, because you and I and Michael, we remember when the urchin divers came, we didn't even know. We're like, what are these guys doing on these little radins? And they're all over the place, and they're bringing up these giant bags of sea urchins. And then all of a sudden the kelp just started growing in places that we had never seen it grow before. Now, up there where you're at, you guys had kelp forever, but they took away the urchin divers and they restricted the areas and they brought down the licensing. Again, in the state of Cal, this is ridiculous. The harvesting of the sea urchin actually helps the environment. They started to restrict the licensing because they started to see, I'm just being honest, Dave Bacon, and they started to see people were making a living in the ocean, and they're like, whoa, wait a minute, whoa. Michael Folks, he's an urchin diver. He bought a car yesterday. Whoa, we can't be having that. We got to figure this out. Whoa. Now, the sea urchin eats the holdfast of the kelp, gang, if you don't know what we're talking about. The holdfast is the root system of the kelp. So they don't bite the leaves. They don't got nothing to do with that. They're eating the holdfast. So then what happens is all of a sudden you took away the urchin divers. And then what you did on top of that was you created the MLP. So the marine protected areas
MLPA.
weren't allowed to dive in there anymore and get the urchins. Go ahead, Dave. Talk about that for a minute. I don't say things perfect. I don't have.
No, that's okay. But you say things good, right? And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, MPAs. Those are. You know, when I sit in meetings, like for example, another thing that I do is I'm involved in the MPA collaboratives. And here again, frequently I'm on one side of the table, everybody else in the room is on the other. Although the last few meetings, we've got a lot of rec anglers there, and it's really helped. But that's primarily kind of rah-rah MPA people. And I like to remind them that, you know, what you got there has got nothing to do with fisheries, and I'm not gonna let you say it is. I'm not gonna let you say, you know, you're saving the fish, because then I say, what are you saving them from? From good, high, best in the world fisheries management with the goal of sustainability, with bag limits and seasons and all these maintenance things that are worked out by people who actually know what they're talking about. Is that what you're saving those fish from? Stop saving them. We're already doing that. The only person in this room, I tell them, that those MPAs affect are me. You don't let me go there anymore. The rest of you can go there and do whatever you want. You created those against one person in this room, me, to lock me out.
Recreational angler.
And considering that I'm engaged in fisheries that are well managed with that goal of sustainability, and we have the best fisheries management in the world, you've got no reason to keep me out. I just keep driving that message home.
Good for you.
And we all got to keep driving that message home. We all need to talk about it. Like we had an awakening during the sand bass thing, thanks to my sister, and then now we're all involved, and now we're all seeing what's going on. Something that's really amazing. Yeah, the urchin divers aren't allowed to harvest the bottom of the ocean and get the urchins anymore, and then the kelp would grow back, and all this would be magical. It works perfect every single time, but now we want to spend billions of dollars transplanting kelp. Well, if the sea urchins are that you could transplant kelp from now until the end of time, but if the sea urchins are there to eat the holdfast, you're never going to get any kelp. I'm sorry. I didn't go to school. I got a ninth grade education, but I guarantee you, if the animal that's eating the holdfast is still there, the billions of dollars you're going to spend transplanting it, it's not going to work. It isn't going to work because the roots can't get grabbed to the bottom of the ocean because the sea urchins are going to eat it all. And if you guys don't know what we're talking about, we got divers in the group, and Brent Mish is a great diver, and he sends me videos all the time. The bottom is corroded with black and red urchins. And the only thing black and red urchins eat is kelp holdfast, the roots of the kelp system. We're going to go a little bit over the hour right now because I'm going to introduce an animal that you in the Midwest don't know what we're talking about right now. This is the only real problem we have on the West Coast is urban runoff and the California sea lion. Those are the only two real problems. They don't want to talk about any of that. Those of you, the catfishermen, could you imagine every single time you catfish, an animal eats it, and it's there the whole time? Now, I know you guys have gators and stuff there, but you don't have, the gators aren't highly intelligent like the California sea lion. Yeah, they're smart. But the sea lion can feel the vibration of the line in the water when you set the hook. They have these giant whiskers that detect movement in the water. The moment Dave Bacon or Michael Fulks sets the hook, that sea lion's on it like a heat-seeking missile. And they grab your fish and they eat it. But that's a problem for fishermen. That's great. But where it gets really gnarly is the salmon. the billions of dollars that we spend every year trying to restore the salmon population. And these California sea lions are on every single dam in California, Oregon, Washington, and Alaska, and they're lazy and they're smarter than hell. So they lay on these rungs of the dam. Remember Jacques Cousteau when he showed us the ladders that they built so that the salmon could get up the ladders to get up to the rivers when they built the, that's where I first saw that, was on the Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau. These California sea lions, the numbers are staggering, gang. Those of you that don't know, that aren't on the West Coast, the numbers are staggering. They're in the multi-millions. They don't say that, though. Dave Bacon's been to enough meetings that they use a number like 40,000 or 80,000. Dave Bacon, you got 40,000 of them in Santa Barbara Harbor. It's just the most amazing thing. Why are we not allowed to talk about that animal, Dave Bacon?
Because it doesn't fit a political perspective. And if I'm the only one of us sitting in a room full of people at a meeting and I bring that up, that conversation gets changed 12 times before I can utter a second sentence. And it's because it doesn't fit the political narrative.
Yep. It's off script.
It's wiping out our fish populations on the West Coast, and we're not allowed to talk about it.
I've even written articles about pinnipeds, and I've written the article about should pinnipeds be managed. And the simple point I make is, and this has to do with other critters out there too, like sea otters. You know, the point I make is you can't manage critters by the cute factor. The cute factor saying, well, if it's cute, you can't manage it. You know, because if you're going to wrap your arms around a part of the food chain and manage it, you better be prepared to wrap your arms around the entire food chain and keep it balanced throughout, top to bottom of the predator list. And that's not being done. There's too much management by the cute factor.
It's amazing to Michael and I and David that this is so true. And a lot of our followers ask me all the time, why is it illegal to talk about? Well, it's not illegal. It's like Dave Bacon said, when he brings up the subject, they've changed the subject 5 times before the last sentence came out of his mouth. So there's just no one wants to talk about it. It's the cute factor. Urban runoff and the California sea lions are the only 2 real problems we have on the West Coast. It's not a Dave Bacon taking people out to catch a calico bass at San Miguel Island. That's never been the problem. Michael Folks summed it up an hour ago when he said, in the history of sport fishing, he talks about you cannot affect the population of the fish in the ocean or the fish in the lake. Even though you guys, you cat fishermen that are watching right now, you're really good cat fishermen. You're not hitting the population of the lake on the catfish. You're not. And to think that is a horrible thing that's been pounded into our minds for the last 40 plus years. And they got people walking around believing the garbage now, just like we're going to run out of fossil fuel one day. Fossil fuel gets created. There's no such thing. It's the second most viable liquid on the planet Earth. It creates itself every single day, but we won't talk about that. That'd be a whole nother show that we are not allowed to talk. Where you live up there, Dave Bacon, you got oil coming out of the water that no one's even touched. It's the craziest thing when you drive around up there, Michael, folks. There's all these oil platforms, and then you see these giant oil slicks that have nothing to do with the oil platform. It's oozing out of the ocean. It's just oozing out of the ground. We're not allowed to touch it in California. And then the Rockefellers, look that up. I'm sorry. I'm going to go down another. The Rockefellers decided to call it fossil fuel back in the 1800s and tell everybody that we were going to run out of it. I'll guarantee you the gas I put in my car yesterday didn't come from a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I'm sorry. It did not. It didn't, gang. These are just some of the lies that are fed to us. And there's a lot of people going, we got to fight. No, you don't. This whole thing would be fixed in California very quickly, very easily. I talk about it every day. Voter ID. Period. It would be done. There's 0.1% of the people that believe in this garbage. 0.1%. They're the ones that are making it so you don't. David Bacon, you're out on the wave walker. You and Tiff, she's working for you. The California Fish and Wildlife pull up. What is the first thing they ask your people?
Well, the first thing they're looking for licenses, of course.
Yeah.
You know.
Can I see your ID?
Yeah, that's after they ask if there are any firearms on board. Yeah, we want IDs and licenses.
It's an upside down world. You go drive a car, you got to have a driver's license, but you don't have to have an ID to vote in California. And if you get caught asking for it, you're going to a federal penitentiary.
It's crazy. It makes me nuts.
Michael, we have a whole bunch of people in the Midwest watching right now that have never seen the show before. Can we spend about 10 minutes talking about your phenomenal docuseries? I'm going to throw the QR code up there while you talk about this. And I don't know if Dave Bacon knows it, and I don't know if any of these people know it. I talk about this every day. The Declaration of Independence was written in the oldest fishing club in the United States of America. Did you know that, Dave Bacon?
Yep.
In the world.
Talk
about it.
1732, a bunch of guys got together along the shores of a place called the Schuylkill River, where is now Philadelphia. And they formed this little fishing club. You might have heard of some of these guys: Benjamin Franklin, Paul Revere, George Washington. I mean, just the forefathers, the men that wrote our Declaration of Independence. They formed this fishing club so they'd have an excuse to meet and talk about declaring our independence from Great Britain. Had they been caught, they would have been hung for treason. So the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States were written by fishermen hiding under the guise of what they called the castle, which was the Schuylkill Fishing Club, which is still in existence today. They kept immaculate records since the beginning of time. And our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence was written by fishermen under the guise of a fishing club, and started in 1732. And it took
of fishermen, by fishermen, for fishermen.
Exactly. And today it's by the money, of the money, and for the money. So, yeah, but it's our heritage. Fishing obviously was an act of survival. You had to hunt and fish and farm in order to survive. And, nobody thought about fishing as a recreational sport, until, I guess two guys are on the bank going, hey, I bet you I catch the first fish or whatever, So it's evolved from an act of survival into a part of our DNA throughout history in this country. And it's something that lives within us. The ones that have it, the ones of us that fish, know what it's all about. We pass that on to our next generations. And Tammy said it best. She was the head writer for the script. She said, the life lessons that can be learned at the end of a line can't really be put into words.
So true. Words I live by were written by Henry David Thoreau, who wrote, "Some people fish all their lives without realizing it's not fish they're after."
It gave me chills. And it really has nothing to do with fish. It's
fish are a nice bonus.
Yeah, it's a huge bonus, especially when it's all grilled up right.
But that's not the reason we're out there.
Nope. It's I don't know how to explain it other than that most people, like you just said, don't realize that what they're doing is not for the fish.
When that line hits the water, gang, any of you, I don't care where you're at, the moment that line hits the water, whatever's going on in your life, it melts away, and all you're thinking about is, how am I going to get that little fish to bite my line? That's it. That's the only thing you're thinking about. When you cast your line in the water, it's just the most magical thing. It saved my life. Fishing saved my life. Fishing saved Michael Folks' life. If you guys don't know who Michael Folks is, those of you in the Midwest, he used to have a TV show out here on the West Coast called Inside Sport Fishing. And I'll tell you what, if Dave Bacon or I ever got on that show, it was like we were in the Hall of Fame. We made it to the big time. If Michael came on our boat and made an episode, it was the biggest thing ever. And you summed this up perfect, David, before we went live. You were like, Michael always did it at the highest level. He didn't mess around. His shows were high level, representing what we did for a living. And then to do what he's done now with the history of sport fishing, just tell people. When you told Dave Bacon how many hours of footage you had and how you went through it all, talk about that for a few minutes, because I guarantee you these guys want to see this docuseries.
Yeah, thanks, David. I'm very proud of what we've been able to do, and I'm actually honored to have been given the opportunity to be in a position where this was something that just came to me when I learned that the first marlin, the first tuna, and the first broadbill swordfish ever captured in the world were caught off Catalina Island. I thought that was a phenomenal story in and of itself. So that was the idea, was to kind of tell the endless summer meets Ken Burns, for sport fishing. And I thought it was going to be a 60-minute movie or whatever. And the IGFA, Trout Unlimited, Bonefish, Tarpon and Trust, the American Museum of Fly Fishing, the list just goes on and on and on. As word got out of what we were doing, these organizations and associations offered their vaults. They opened up their film vaults and said, we've got photographs and pictures that are over 100 years old that you're welcome to have access to if you think you can use them. And so what started off as a 1-hour movie just organically grew. And we talked about this earlier, David, about, you cut to content. We had such great content that I couldn't stop making this film until we got 12 hours of it put together in the can. So what started off as a 1-hour movie ended up being a 12-hour documentary. And it covers everything from the first known written recorded record of a rod and reel back in 300 BC in China, all the way through to the contemporary 4K stuff that we're doing today, side scanning sonars and infrared, everything. So it's a phenomenal, and we cover every species, and we cover every region. And we really have tried to do tribute to the sport and the essence of what the sport is all about.
And the only way you can get this, gang, right now is with that QR code you see up on the screen, or go to Michael's website, The History of Sport Fishing. It's only available to stream it on your phone or on your laptop or on your television if you have a smart television, but that's it right now. Yeah, maybe down the line someday it'll be available. You don't want to wait. You don't want to wait to watch this, because this is our life. When you watch this, you're just the next thing you know, you're like, it's 4 a.m. I just watched 6 episodes. I got to get some sleep and then get right up in the morning and watch the whole thing again. You're going to learn so much about what we do for a living. Dave Bacon, I was just shocked of all the stuff that I learned. Because I didn't go to school, so maybe they covered that in school. I don't think they did, the Declaration of Independence. I don't think anybody covered that.
I don't remember anyone mentioning it was written by a bunch of fishermen. No, I don't.
No,
but, you need to watch Michael's stuff to learn these things. And what I like and have for many, many years about Michael's work is, as I said before the show, it's compelling, and it's also technical excellence.
Well,
and that just makes it so worth watching.
We've worked hard. And we've got some footage that dates back over 100 years. And it's hard to try to get that footage up to a standard that can be looked at without, it all just being a can of mush. So we've worked really hard at restoring the films and up-resing them and trying to make it so it's a presentable product on television. And my goal was to be able to get it up on an 80-inch screen and have it still look good. And so I think we're there, and we've just signed a deal with a distribution company up in Los Angeles called Monkey Wrench Films, and they specialize in outdoor documentaries. And they jumped all over this thing. They said, "Oh, we love this project." So we're in the process right now of getting it delivered to them. So hopefully they can start putting it out to the gin pop in a more accessible manner than having to log on and actually stream it yourself.
But if you're looking for a gift for someone in your family that fishes, I'll tell you what, you can't get better than this. And Dave Bacon and I will tell you that all the stuff that we watched growing up that Michael did was second to none. It depicted what we did for a living so well. And then to find out the history of what we did for a living. And all of you guys that are watching this show, you're all fishermen. You wouldn't be watching my silly podcast if you weren't fishermen. So do yourself a favor and your family a favor. And kids can watch this, and they should watch this because it is that. There's no cussing, there's no violence, it's wholesome, quality entertainment that you can't find anywhere else.
I had this great shot of Zane Grey on his boat, the fishermen, when they arrived in Tahiti, and they had these young Tahitian girls paddling out in their dugout canoes to meet them, and they were all topless. And I'm thinking, what a great shot. And they said, nope, it's out. So, but I mean, it's really a family, it's a family viewing project. And a guy wrote me the other day and said, I just want to thank you. I gave this to my father as a gift, and it's the greatest gift that I've ever given my dad. He said, we sat there together and cried watching it. So, you get that kind of feedback. It makes me feel like, we're on the right track. We're trying to do the right thing. And throughout the film, Captain Dave, we've talked about sustainability and the importance of conservation and doing the right thing when you're on the water. Take what you can use what you can take, and then release the rest. You don't need to take it home and throw it in the garden for fertilizer. I know Hanson and I go head to head. He says if it swims, kill it. But it's
that's my stick though. And I know it's just my stick.
But it's important. I think it's important. And like you were saying, join CCA, Coastal Conservation Association, and take a kid fishing. You do those two things, you're doing your part to sustain this industry for generations to come. But it's going to take all of us. We've got 50 million people that buy a license in the U.S. every year. 50 million licensed anglers. That's 16% of the population. That's a voice. But we're not heard because we're so individual. I think fishing is such an individual sport that we get out there, and I call it a wheelhouse mentality. It's like, all I care about is my boat. I want to make sure that the oil filters are working, the bait's healthy, whatever I need to do to go out and catch fish. I don't want to worry about all this other stuff on the beach.
Sure.
We have to be heard.
We have to. And, we have to organize to do that. And when you think the segments, I mean, freshwater bass fishing is so fun, right? And there's so much to it. And people love sharing their stories and whatnot. And the reality is the things we're fighting now, the freshwater bass fishing folk better get ready to start fighting it.
Yep.
It's coming everywhere, So we all need to work together and just join together.
And you just said join together. It's a simple process. Join CCA.
Yeah, and get involved.
Get
involved in your local chapter.
$25, $5. I don't know what it costs, but it's just join. Let your voice be heard by joining, and then take it a step further and take a kid fishing. And you'll be able to close your eyes at night and go to sleep knowing that you've helped by, you think, oh, it's $25. I'm one voice. One voice times 50 million makes a difference. One voice times 0 makes 0. So it's like Dave's when he was pitching so hard for all us to get together and on the barb sand bass, we overwhelmed him. It was too big to rig.
It's easy to see how it works when it works,
when it does,
and why it works.
Yep. So let your voice be heard. Take the time, sign up, join CCA, take a kid fishing, and you're going to sleep like a baby.
That's a good reason for sleeping well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you, David Bacon, for coming on the show with Michael and I today. It was an honor and a pleasure to have you with us. And your daughter is a huge plus to my website, and I can't thank Tiffany enough. Gang, if you want to get involved in making rods, go over and check out Your Saltwater Guide over on the forums page. Tiffany's building up a phenomenal following over there, and you guys can check her out. She's only been doing it now for a week, and she's already got a nice following, and she isn't going anywhere. She's bringing a bunch of good stuff to us, and this is what Bill Batson was hoping that we would do, is something like that. He wants to be involved with Your Saltwater Guide. He was just at the point where he was like, there's really nothing for us here yet. And I was like, yeah, we'll stand by. It's a work in progress. We're not going anywhere. Thank you all very, very much for watching our show today. Next week, I think Michael and I got these catfish guys. They're pretty fired up to be on the show with us, Michael. So it should be fun. And David, I know you have a ton of stuff that we could talk about for the rest of the time. The show's only an hour. We went over, and for that, I apologize because I told you I'd take an hour of your time. I know Michael's got to get back to editing. I am sicker than heck. I'm going to go back to bed right now. Thank you, everybody, for watching the show. If you've never seen the show before, this is number 747. This is our 747th podcast. The really cool thing about our podcast, you can drive across the country with your children in the car, as you saw today, no cussing. I know it's hard to imagine a bunch of fishermen talking, sitting around talking, and we don't cuss, but we don't. We don't cuss. It matters because I, Dave Bacon, and Michael Folks want you to get your children involved. That's why you didn't hear any expletives the whole show. We don't do that. We don't want you to go, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. They said that on the show. You can listen, and your children will pay attention because you're not going to be turning it off every couple of seconds because these guys are spewing out a bunch of horrible words. So I take pride in that. My dad used to wonder how the heck I do that, but it matters. There's a lot of people watching us right now, the three of us, and it matters. So check out all the other podcasts. We'll be here for you tomorrow. I got Bill Barney joining us tomorrow. Justin Bottrell can't go fishing because it's a little breezy tomorrow, so he's going to jump on here with us, talk about that great sea bass and yellowtail fishing, and maybe Captain Al. He's kind of sick, but he's hoping to join us. But we'll have a good show for you tomorrow.